Lawrence Broudy set foot on the soil of Tanravarapore with that subtle vertigo known only to those who, for the very first time, breathe the air of a planet they've heard so much about, but which no story, no image, could ever truly convey. Before she left, her old friend Teddy Belgoul, an inexhaustible storyteller with the air of an interstellar drifter, had told her that this was the most beautiful city in the entire galaxy. She had smiled then. Now she understood. He had told her how he himself had once arrived from orbit, having woken from a restless sleep just before landing, his heart pounding, still shaken by a dream of a perfectly round lake, an immense eye surrounded by mountains, the sunken rim of an ancient caldera. He said that within the city's temples rose the silent psalmody of the sacred fire, a flame that never died. As soon as she arrived, the light struck her as strange. The local star, more golden than yellow, cast long, diffuse shadows, with a glow almost like burnished copper. The sun was fading, and the late afternoon spread a mantle of amber across the facades, courtyards, and domes. She walked slowly toward the imperatorial quarter, to her salmon-colored house, a hue she would never have chosen back on Antillese. Yet here it curiously matched the blooming pear trees and ripe raspberry bushes. The wooden house smelled of warm resin and beeswax. Everything was simple, functional, yet delicately thought out. She set down her suitcase, thought briefly of Joseph and the boys, who would only be joining her 2 days later, then stepped back outside. She had no plan, just to walk, to breathe, to let herself be moved. Tanravarapore was not a city one visited. It was a city one had to let in. She crossed the stone bridge arching over the Ardashirap River. There she paused, captivated by the distant reflection of the fire temple on the still waters of the lake. 12 blood-red columns, gleaming green and blue capitals, and, perched at the top, the golden Varegna bird, frozen in regal splendor. She had the strange feeling of being both a witness and a chosen guest to a cosmic ritual whose words she had yet to learn. Then she wandered into the livelier streets of the merchant city on the eastern bank, the bazaar. She had never seen anything like it. The scents hit her first: saffron from Cartusia, argan oil from the planet Morocco, candied mangoes from the planet India, warm almond paste from Seleucia, fresh coriander from Palestina, dried lavender from Occitania, a kaleidoscope of aromas that nearly made her dizzy. The market stalls opened like alcoves into other worlds. Pyramids of spices, heaps of unknown vegetables, hammered copperware, alabaster vases, shimmering fabrics from multiple star systems, from the multiple realms of this humanity conquering the interstellar universe. Everything seemed to speak both of here and elsewhere. A vendor handed her a pearly apple from Fouflenge, almost translucent, crowned with a pink halo. She took a bite. The flesh was soft, filled with light. The merchant said something in Avestan, which she didn't understand. She replied in Esperanto, smiling. He switched to a melodious French with an accent that drifted between planets. They laughed together. A little farther down, she lingered at a textile booth. A piece of starlit fabric, woven on an angia, drew her in like a silent song. She hadn't planned to buy anything, but she did. Children darted between the stalls, laughing in Avestan, apologizing in their musical dialects. A woman dressed in ochre sang as she baked filled flatbreads. An old artisan carved combs from plant ivory. Another sold chilled fermented milk in polished horn cups. A street vendor extolled the virtues of a knife made on Anatolia, rust-proof for 3 years. Lawrence felt light, unburdened, as if the weight of her everyday life had dissolved in the light and scents around her. Daylight was fading. The sky was glowing red. The 2 moons slowly rose, one white, calm, serene, the other red, pulsing, almost like a threat. Together they seemed to whisper over the city. She looked up toward the hills. The towers of silence stood on the horizon, dark, austere, eternal. It was time to go back. She walked up the quiet street, slowly, one hand resting on the star-speckled fabric now draped around her shoulders. On her porch, she settled into the swinging bench. The black sand beach shimmered softly in the distance. The eternal fire still burned, a golden thread in the night. Tomorrow she would return to the Machiavelli Institute. The day after, Joseph and the children would arrive. Vacation would begin, a different life outside time and turmoil. But tonight, she was alone in Tanravarapore. And that was perfect. Nothing hinted that just 2 days earlier, the feast of Saint Antonin had swept humanity toward a new destiny. Like that warm breath over the lake, like the distant call of a prayer to fire. The Shadow of the Princes, Chronicles of the Red Kings, Tome 1, now available on Amazon and Kindle. And if you want to learn more about Lawrence Brudi, Teddy Bellegueule, and all those who lived through the Saint Antonin's Day turning point, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and share.